friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robby, welcome back to our channel Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series, The Son of Neptune.
Which is Percy Jackson.
I know, Percy's back, baby. Oh man, I mean, I don't know what your experience was with this, but this book was so interesting because it made me have multiple reactions. One, I enjoyed this so much more than the last one, so much more so than the last one that it actually made the last one a little bit lower in my estimation.
Oh, sure, yeah,
and this
I kind
one
of get
even
that.
higher, because I just think this book was great. I think this book really picked up where the last, and I think it is so much because Percy's back, and it is, and like I know it's not just Percy's book, there are multiple POVs, but it's Percy's book, I mean, come on.
100%.
Riordan is so clearly knows Percy's voice and feels so comfortable writing as him.
And we also know him too.
And we know him, so it feels comfortable, it feels like we're back reading younger Percy stuff, and for some reason I was telling you this right when I picked up the book, and this was something that I struggled with a little bit in the last one. The humor works. I don't know why. I think it's just because I expect it from him.
Yeah.
But like, even with Hazel and Frank, the humor doesn't work as well, but with Percy, yep. 100%. I'm like, yeah, that's funny.
That's
I'm
his
into
voice.
It. That's his
voice.
That's him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it made me really happy. Sorry, I talked a lot. What were your experiences?
I thought it was delightful. I think similarly, like I like the new characters that we got introduced to. I felt similar in the last book. I felt like this one moved a little bit faster. I was very intrigued. I think Hazel and Frank are new favorites of mine.
They're great.
Yeah, which to me was a driving force for this. Obviously Percy is great, but Percy was very settled and like secure for me, like in that. And so I was more driven in like learning more about Hazel and Frank. And so whenever we had their POV chapters, I was really pumped because I want to know more about their history, about their families, about their life, about their journeys, because I thought that was so interesting. I thought this again was a little romantic, which I love.
Very romantic, yes.
I think these ones, not to say, I think the Percy Jackson series is great. I'm reading them for the first time as a 33-year-old. So I think there were some things that were like lacking for me and like what I like to read. Obviously, they're still delightful, but these are a little bit more mature and a little bit more fun.
Yes.
As a girl who loves romance, like, I love a little bit of romance, even like a little teen romance. So that I found really, really fun. Yeah.
I think overall the book somewhat suffered from the same plot structure as the last one. I thought that the ending was awesome. I thought the ending was great. I thought the beginning, I loved the beginning too. But then in the middle again, it kind of got bogged down by Riordan's formula, which is like they go to like 6 different kind of self-contained quests to get to the final place. And I just think that because the books are so much longer than the original Percy Jackson books, it suffers a little bit for that, but I think it's much less than the first one. At least that was my feeling on it.
Yeah, sure.
But also, I mean, your mileage may vary because
it's a little tedious, I think, at times.
Yeah, I loved the beginning. I really loved the beginning with, well, actually, spoilers. We should know anyway. Sorry, anyway, so those are our overall thoughts. If you have not read The Son of Neptune yet, please stop, come back later. We'll be here. The book's great. Highly recommend it. But spoilers going forward. I mean, one of my favorite things was we started with Percy, and Percy's immediately hyper-violent. And, like, it's so funny. It's such a great juxtaposition from Jason, who has a much more kind of stoic personality, and is much more serious, whereas Percy's like, I have run these... I was going to say bad word. I have
Percy
run these...
would yell at you for that.
Yeah, I have run these Gorgons over. I have done all of this... Like, I've dropped stuff. I've killed them, like, 6 times.
Which I do think is
whereas
interesting.
Jason's like, where am I? I'm in the back of the bus.
Everyone?
Yeah. What's going on?
And I think that's also kind of fun because, like, I immediately saw that as, like, Percy has no memories, but he's sinking into the things that he knows, which is how to fight
hyper-violence.
Yeah.
And I did think it was funny that in the very beginning they were like, oh yeah, we got to take away the river Styx blessing because otherwise you're broken.
I literally thought the same thing. They were like,
yeah, sure,
you can't have that.
Yeah, you got to make that work somehow. I liked homeless garbage lady Juno. Hera, that was so funny, and that she kept coming back for no reason as the homeless garbage lady.
Yes, 100%. It's so interesting. Hera, Juno's. I'm so intrigued by her. I know she's like
she
playing.
Sucks, she's so funny.
But like, I'm like, I want to know why she sucks. I want to this is another one. I want a Sally Jackson fanfic. I want a Hera fanfic.
Sure.
Like, I gotta know because like I know she's been treated like crap. Obviously, Zeus has a bunch of other kids. Like I want to know more about her. I think she's chaotic and great.
It's funny because and
everything she does, she's like, I did this for a reason. Not gonna tell you.
Yeah. It's funny because like in the last book, she's clearly shown as like kind of the puppet master,
Uh-huh.
but they save her. In this book, she's just like a chaos gremlin. Like, why does she make Percy carry her?
Which is kind of why I love her.
Any sense? It's just like
I'm into it.
Yeah, I thought it was the first time I was like, okay, fine, Juno's rubbing off on me, mostly because I just thought it was really funny, and I was like, what are you doing?
I love it.
And then we immediately get introduced to our two new companions.
Hazel and
Frank and Hazel. And I like Frank and Hazel a lot. I love buff baby man Frank.
Buff
It's so funny. But I will say, I think that they're great. I think that they suffer slightly because the last book was, I mean, Jason is like the leader, but it was Piper, Leo, and Jason's book.
Yeah.
To me, this book is Percy's book.
Yeah.
And so like I like Frank and Hazel a lot, but Percy's personality kind of like really does overshadow a lot of things, and they kind of try and make Frank the leader at certain points, but Percy is still kind of the guy.
I had the exact opposite.
Oh, did you really?
I think because I knew Percy so well, I paid him very little attention.
Fascinating.
I was like, again, but I also think like I liked Piper and Leo in the last book. I think I loved Leo, but like I was very interested in Frank and Hazel's backstories, and I thought that they were very fleshed out characters. The fact that they came in already kind of having a bit of a friendship or relationship. Yep. Like their chapters were so much more awakening to me than Percy's. I kind of, not that I ignored Percy, I enjoyed it, but like I was like, oh, okay, I want to know more about them. I know about you. I want to know more about them.
Yeah, and the mysteries, I mean, they had big mysteries. I did be like, man, not everyone needs to have like a huge secret, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, gosh, magic. Hades loved those time travel kids.
I know he does.
I thought it was so...
There was another one, and there was a couple points where I was like, oh, this is just the thing that we do.
This is the thing that we... Got it. Well, I also thought it was really funny that I was like, okay, so there's another kid, but she came back from death, so okay, yes. It is a little bit different, but I liked that Nico was there.
Oh, and Nico...
Nico being like, hey, I'm Nico.
He's like, yo, what's up?
He's like, don't tell him that. Percy's being like, yeah, I think I know you.
No,
like, probably not.
Where are you talking about?
I don't know how you would know me. That'd be crazy.
Nico, our favorite sad emo boy.
Yeah, love him showing up. Also love him just like showing up at Camp Jupiter and then being like, who are you? And he's like, I'm
Son of
emissary of Pluto. And you're like, okay.
Sure.
He's like, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I thought Camp Jupiter was fun.
Well, that's why I really liked the beginning of the book, because the last book, so much of it was like, they get to camp, and then they immediately all like win camp, and then they get sent on a quest, which is hilariously kind of what happens in this book too. Like, Percy shows up, Frank and Hazel both say they've only been here for like a few months, and then they immediately kick a bunch of ass, and then get to take quests. Yep. And I was like, that is funny that it's basically kind of the same thing. Yeah. But I really liked the whole beginning, because Camp Jupiter is a new thing. We already know everything about Camp Blood, so there wasn't as much of Camp Half-Blood, or at least it didn't feel like it, in The Lost Hero, which meant that there was more time for side quests. Yeah. Whereas this book, for a full like 40% of the book was getting to Camp Jupiter and then like dealing with the different factions there and the different meeting new people. Well, and I really enjoyed it because it's a whole new setting.
And I also, like, what I loved so much was the fact that they were like, yeah, demigods like grow old here.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, because it was something that I didn't really think too much about.
And the Greeks definitely never do, because it's not mentioned once.
No, and I was like, as they were saying this, and they were talking about the little girl who was the assistant to
the stone god, Terminus or something.
Yeah. And they were like, oh yeah, she like lives here with her family. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so heartwarming. And I was like, wait a minute, what's happening to all the Greek demigods? We're not okay.
To be fair, I mean, and this makes sense because Rome and Greece and stuff, but like the chaos of Camp Half-Blood and the way that all the Greek demigods are versus the Roman ones makes sense that they don't have a retirement package.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because I've read a lot of, a decent amount now of like Hades and Persephone retellings, fictional, obviously. Real life ones, if you know. But a lot of times that will be kind of like the underworld of like, here is our like, not Elysium, because that's where you like go, that's like paradise, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, this is like, here is where our like, what we've like set up for essentially like a retirement village, and that's kind of how I've seen the underworld portrayed a few times, and so I thought that was kind of an interesting way of like, they live in this like secret bubble, this protected bubble, but they have a full life. There's cafes, there's coffee shops, there's college. Yeah. I loved that. Yeah. It made my heart very happy.
Yes, me too. And it's great. And it is something that Percy is clearly very interested in, which makes a lot of sense with all the loss and death that he's experienced as someone thinking forward. and trying to create a life with himself and his loved ones. I loved all the bits of Camp Jupiter, and I especially shout out to Octavian here playing the role of the, like, kind of religious cult leader.
Yeah,
that's not what he is, but, like, that's the archetype he's playing, and clearly, like, a schemer, and I really liked it, and I also really liked the fact that instead of making live sacrifices, he sacrifices stuffed animals. It's really funny.
Creepy.
It's a really, really funny bit. Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, I feel like most of the side quests are really just, like, let's figure out what's going on with Hazel and
100%,
Frank.
yes.
And, which is great. And, you know, Frank finally...
Again, a little tedious, but...
Frank finally I do think it's a bit rude that all of, like, Mars and his grandma are all like, you haven't figured out what your powers are yet?
I don't understand why they can't just tell him
what the powers are.
I didn't get that at all. It drove me crazy.
But I did love, I mean, when he first transformed for the first time, it was epic. It was really, really cool.
And his description of, like, I got lighter, and I felt this, like, it was really cool. I love Frank. And I think Frank is my fave.
Frank is great.
He's a delight.
I also liked when the horse called him like I will kill you, you weird Asian man-child, or something. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Wow. I will say that the horse, Hazel's horse, whose name is escaping me right now, did just throw into sharp relief. Like the word cussing was used like 6 times in 2 pages, and I went, they would be cussing, like they are in middle school, which I just thought that was kind of, I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But
this one, I will say, like, I forgot where we are in the time of the world, like, as in, like, when these were written and the things we were focusing on, and this is kind of pulled me out of Riordan's writing in general, just because I'm at a different phase of my life and we're also at a different world. Like, the absolute obsession with talking about the man purse, the man bag, I couldn't. I will say, even when I remember that, like, that being like, oh yeah, my man bag, like, being such an era of, like,
I forgot about that part.
Of, like, I don't know, disgust or shame or whatever, and I just rolled my eyes at it from the beginning, because I was like, purse is not a feminine thing, relax, like, you're just carrying a bag, you gotta carry your stuff, get over it. And there's always little things like that. There weren't as many in this text, because I think we're getting later on in time, and also we're maturing a little bit, but those things, like, pull me out of, like, very much of what the era was, and I'm like, okay, oh god, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think Frank's such an interesting character, and I think it's interesting that almost all of these characters have direct ties to Juno.
Yeah.
With Leo, like, her clearly having planned this a very long time ago. But, I mean, Frank finally literally coming into his own and accepting himself.
And finding out how much godly lineage he has is really cool.
And
his mom seems so delightful.
Yeah. And, you know, seeing the different aspect of Ares in Mars was very interesting. We got less gods than I kind of wanted in this book, but I will also say the Roman gods are less fun than the Greek gods because they're less chaotic. Yeah. It seems like, except for Juno, apparently.
Juno's chaos.
But so I didn't mind it that much. And also our characters all had very intriguing things going on. So
yeah, and I was intrigued by Hazel from the very beginning. Yeah. We honestly, and I liked that
her death
got
is so sad.
Oh
like
my
her life is tragic.
God, my heart was ripped out because we were like, it was alluded to, but just to see, and also it being in direct comparison to her absolute power, like how much power she has, and her, you know, tragic backstory. I'm glad that we knew from the beginning that she came from the past. So that wasn't really a part of the secret. It was more of like what happened to get you here that we were kind of unwrapping and unveiling, and I thought that was really great. And having her and Frank like share trust and how she was able to bring him into her vision. Dream.
I loved that scene.
I thought that was great. Loved it. Oh my god, Ella.
Oh, okay. So this was I
top
said to you.
Tier.
I said this to. So when I was reading it, I finished before her, and I had been reading a bit, and I stopped and I went up to you and I went, "There is something that happens in this book that you are going to love. Do you know what it is?"
That I'm going to love.
Yeah. It has to do with Ella.
I love Ella so much.
What else does Ella do in this book?
She does a lot of really great references. Her and Tyson.
Yes, that. I literally went, this is the best. Him going,
blushing.
She is very pretty. Like,
giving me loyal vibes.
I was like, I love this. Yes. This is so pure, so great.
Tyson's one of my favorite characters, and then we get Ella, and Ella's just this genius little bird, and I love her so much.
Also, both of them are probably somewhere on the spectrum or something along those lines. I love it so much. It's so they're both so cute. They're so fun. Some of the biggest laughs I got through the entire book are them. It's just so heartwarming and wonderful.
Yeah, thank God.
And pure. I loved that very much. I also loved, kind of related to both of them, how we got to see the Roman versions of like, oh, those centaurs are not the party ponies, and the fawns being like more like
homeless
the
people?
more like the party ponies. They're kind of like homeless drifters. I was like,
and everyone's like, ew, gross fawns.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, I thought that was really Riordan cannot help but throw different like historical elements in.
Which
like,
I
you're
love,
learning.
which is why as a young person, I would have absolutely devoured these because that's what I loved historical fiction.
Absolutely.
So.
But yeah, I think again, I'm the bit in the middle with all the side quests kind of take or leave. I liked the Iris bit. I thought that was mostly just kind of amusing, where she's like, I've started my own
her hippie shop,
kind of like hippie shop, and I was like, okay, that's funny. But
what do they call the cupcakes at the end? Simulations.
Yes,
cupcake simulations. I was like, that's good.
Great.
That's good wording.
I thought that was really funny. But for most of it, I was just like, okay, I was just kind of. It feels like it slowed the book down a little bit for me, but the ending was so great. Like when
but I also think within the middle too, we got so many pieces of Frank and Hazel that I did find it drove a bit more than it could have.
Moved a bit more. 100%. Yeah, and the ending was the fight scene.
I was exhausted.
Both
honestly.
fight scenes, the one in Alaska where they fight the giant there, and the one when they get back to Camp Jupiter on the Field of Mars were epic and some of the best action sequences I think he's written.
I
agree.
They were fantastic. I had a hard time keeping up.
Like
there
Hurricane Percy and Frank shifting all over the place. I thought it was
great.
Phenomenal.
And once again, seeing this tiny little Hazel and how powerful she is always awesome.
Yeah.
I loved that. And I also thought it was really nice the through line of Percy and Annabeth's love the entire time. I was like,
that's the one thing he never forgot.
And I loved that, as a young person, the idea of, because that's, I don't know, kind of how I was of, the loyalty, the bit, not obsession, not that they're obsessed, but that's kind of what it is when you're younger, of, I was like, this is very accurate, of, this is my home person, this is my person. I just thought that was really cute, really sweet.
Yeah. The ending I loved. I absolutely adored basically everything that happened at the end. And, the setup for the next book where, they win the fight. Octavian is still scheming and trying to turn up everyone against the Greeks, and Percy sasses the crap out of it. It's really funny. And then, we end with our heroes from with
very big mic drop
moment landing in the
and I love
center
that,
of New Rome.
And I also love that to bring them, Percy literally has his hands around Frank and Hazel, bringing them into the group.
And they're
as
you don't need to keep up. We understand if your old friends are coming back and your memory's back. And he's like, no, absolutely not.
He's like, let's go.
Yeah, we just did all this together.
And now I'm excited because we have the Avengers Assemble.
We do have the Avengers Assemble, and we know that we know at least. I don't know, probably 6 of the 7.
Yeah.
So who's of the 7 demigods?
Well, maybe it is 7 because we've got Annabeth.
That's true. So maybe we know all 7.
Oh, maybe. Let's go. And we're going to Rome.
Oh, and also, we didn't really touch on this. I liked Thanatos a lot, actually. Death. The personification of death. Hot death.
Hot death.
Absolutely. Makes sense. I'm on board.
I love that Hazel, 13-year-old, is like, oh my god, this man is really pretty. Oh my god.
I liked the way that he was portrayed. It was it was a new god that we'd never met before, and I really liked the way that he was portrayed and the way he was just like, death is not fair. Mm-hmm. I think I actually wrote down a specific quote that I was like, that's good, man.
Yeah.
No, that was it. There is no fairness in death. I was just like,
I thought that was really beautiful too.
Yeah, I liked his whole scene. And we never even talked about, speaking, and I have nothing to say about this other than it made me happy, but Mrs. O'Leary with Tyson, I was just like, oh,
Besties.
Mrs. O'Leary.
Besties.
And deep cut callback to Sea of Monsters with the Amazons.
Oh yeah, I was excited. I also love that the Amazons are Amazon.
Yes.
The Amazons work in the Amazon warehouse and keep male slaves.
Yes, I feel like
because
there's been less
how they want to be.
Of that in these 2 books.
Yeah.
And then in the first book, that was all over the place.
Yeah, the references to pop culture.
Yeah, but them being Amazon, I thought was
and holding
hilarious.
a Kindle at one point, there was like, what is that?
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, that's too thin to be a book.
Yeah.
Very good.
I thought that was very good. But overall, I think this book was absolutely a step up than the first one. I liked it quite a bit better. What do you think we should rate this out of? I have an idea, but...
Go.
The Eagle Standard.
Oh yeah, Eagle. Done.
Yeah.
The Eagle.
Yeah, I forget what they call it. The Fulminata, 12th Legion Fulminata, or whatever they call it. I would give this a 4.5 out of 5 Roman standards.
I would give this a 4.
4? Yeah, I think this was a step up. I think that, this is right there with like the last few books of the original Percy Jackson series. It's one of my favorite books in the whole Riordanverse. I really liked this. I think the setup was good. I do think that pacing thing is still there, and I'm wondering how that's going to work with the last few books.
Knowing that it's so much longer too.
Well, that's the thing. If it wasn't so long, I don't think it would be as much of a problem. Yeah. But it really feels like the middle gets bogged down. So I hope that maybe that's kind of addressed or changed.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the first 40% of this book, I was 100% in on. I was just like, this is great. This is moving at a great pace. I'm learning so many things. I'm meeting so many new people, without the kind of side quest. Plot device that is usually in these books.
A little bit silly.
Yeah.
A lot of the times,
but we'll see. I don't know.
Excited for the next. I'm actually excited for the next
because I wasn't really. And I think that based on the title, we can probably guess who's going to be pretty important in that book. So I'm very excited for that next one. But yeah, those are our. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, those are our thoughts on the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series. If you want to hear our thoughts on the first one and haven't had a chance yet, you can find a link to the video above my head or in the description down below. How does this book stand up in your estimation against all the other Percy Jackson books? Is this one of your favorites? Is it one of your least favorites? What are your favorite moments? Let us know in the comments down below. We would love to talk about it. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and
we'll see you on our next adventure.